Peace, 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 everyone. It's Chief Yuya. Willfully, you can hear me with no complications. Turn down my turn down my inspiration, my background inspiration. But I know. Let me see. Can I bring the chat up? I know you are expecting Brother Low, and you're not getting that. Hold on. I know I'm echoing. All right. Cool. Cool. Loud and clear. All right. Give thanks. Yeah, I just found out I'm filling in very last minute, man. Super, super, super last minute. But this is what we do. It's beautiful to be able to fill in and jump in as and when needed. So before we start, give me a second here. I just want to share because that's the right thing to do. All right. All right. Give me a second. Yeah. So. All right. There we go. Good. I think it's good. All right. Yeah. So our brother Low is strengthening himself right now. So about I checked in. Uh, yeah, maybe about, I think it was 15 minutes ago, and Sister Deidre said that she was actually going to fill in for him for his segment or for the movie Dynasty Warriors. She watched the movie, checked it out, did the break, all did it all last minute, and then I said, we could do that, or if you want, I could just, you know, freestyle something. So here I am, but that's what you do. You help each other out when it's needed, and you fill in as needed, and keep things moving. So instead of, I know again you probably expecting to see Brother Low this evening. He'll be right back. So the thing about it, instead of me going through a particular film and breaking it down. I know you were waiting for Dynasty Warriors, but I felt like it was better to let Low do it. And the reason being is that he enjoys peace, sovereign eats, and peace, Sister Precious, Sister Deidre, I saw in the chat already. Peace to you too. For those I might have missed, my apologies. But he's so versed and so tight with the history piece, and he loves history. I was like, nah, man, be better when he's ready again to present it. Let him do that presentation. So what I wanted to build on with you, and again, like I said, last minute. So be forgiving this evening. I figured we could kick it on just the subject of breaking down movies, right? Uh, a lot of times, we go through the movie breakdowns and whatnot, and you may not know why we do breakdowns sometimes or what you should even be looking for. I've had people tell me before they wanted to do breakdowns and stuff, but it felt like I don't know what to talk about. Like I don't see everything that you see, right? Now, of course, no one's gonna see what another person sees. We all have our own different perspectives, and that's one of the most important things when you're speaking about culture, history, and spirituality, is that we all do actually see something different. So every testament is going to be different based on the angle and the perspective that a person holds who's witnessing the same thing that another person may be witnessing, right? But one of the things that you'll find with movie breakdowns, especially movies that have a metaphysical value, because really those are the best ones. Obviously there's times when maybe you just want to watch something just to kind of numb out. You know, you just want to watch something that's silly because maybe you've had a heavy day, or you just need an escape. And that was one of the advantages of being able to go into an actual theater. Was the fact that how that feeling you get when you come out of the theater after watching something and kind of going on that emotional and intellectual journey, that cerebral journey that a film may take you on, and then you come outside and like the light is different. Maybe it's dark now, or the weather has changed. And but for an hour and a half or 2 hours while you were inside that theater, you just felt like you were in a different world. You know, it was dark. You're in a comfortable chair. The lights are low, and everything inside of that environment, inside of the theater, is telling you it's time to go to sleep, right? And one of the key pieces is like Buddha would say that one of the most prime and vital keys to the philosophy that Buddha shared was to stay awake. Now nowadays people say stay woke, but it's actually, truthfully, is Buddha said it a long time ago, but he said stay awake, right? Maybe he said stay woke, but they just translated it a little differently. But the point is that no matter the environment that you're in, you want to be completely present, right? Being so staying awake means to be in the moment, right? And a lot of times when you're watching film, and it could happen in your home as well, but definitely when you go to the theaters and you watch a film and then you come out and you just feel like you were in a different world. And like I said, everything in that environment, even the food you're eating, food, right? So you may have a lot of, like, whether it's popcorn, which is basically just carbohydrates, or you're having nachos, which is all the starch, sodas, but you're ingesting things that would normally probably give you a sugar high and put you right back to sleep. You're in a comfortable chair, but something is keeping you awake. And that's kind of the interesting experience when you're having that theater experience. But like, Buddha said, stay awake, right? So one of the key things when you're doing a breakdown is staying awake. When you go into whether you're breaking out a movie in your home, you're watching it on your phone while you're traveling, or you're in a theater, the main thing is that you have to be present when you're watching, and you can't be so bedazzled by the obvious messages. Like certain films you'll watch, it's lights all over the screen. It's a lot of action and special effects. In fact, the one that we were going to do tonight, Dynasty Warriors, was like that. A lot of fight scenes, special effects were really cool in that film. But you're supposed to stay awake. So you have all of those things that are kind of satisfying your lower senses to get you into a place where you're distracted by that. But you're supposed to see the subtle nuances of the question. And every deep film is presenting the same question. It's questioning your reality. That's the point of any metaphysical philosophy, right? It's to question reality. I mean, the point of philosophy is to question reality. I think, therefore I am. Things like that. Like, is that really the truth? Is it, or you're presented something, and the difference with a film, you'll get certain ideas that are presented, but the scientific method goes out the window. Whereas in philosophy, you're going to use the scientific method to try to prove or disprove your hypothesis, or the current hypothesis that exists. This is the hypothesis. Boom. I'm skeptical about it, so I want to disprove it. So I'll use some form of scientific method to do so, right? But in films, it's like you go into another world, and there is no method of proving or disproving, which makes it so interesting because it transports you into an assumed reality, right? So one of the things that when you're breaking down a film that allows you to stay engaged is because there's always a character in any and every film that is enthusiastic, right? Enthusiasm is a key component to enthusiasm is the key component to everything. To be honest with you, I can't really separate it and say that it only has an application in certain places, because books and movies are life, right? Books are a book of life. Movies are a movie of life. There are a certain kind of lens that life can be reinterpreted through maybe colors that you wouldn't expect, or sounds that you wouldn't expect, or the other important thing is connections that you may not expect, right? And life is not much different when you learn how to navigate it with intelligence. The best way that you navigate your life is through enthusiasm, right? And enthusiasm is it's an interesting word. You know, it's similar to like spirit, but it's a lesser form of the word of spirit. So if you were to rank words in their power and potency, it would be enthusiastic, then it would be inspired, right? Because when you're enthusiastic, it comes from the Latin, enthuism or entheos, which was entheos. Theos means God, right? So enthusiasm means to be one with God or to be in agreement with God. That's when you're enthusiastic, right? So when you're enthusiastic, you then become inspired. So when you're enthusiastic and you're one with God, you then become inspired, which means now you have the indwelling of God's Spirit. So you're inspired by God's Spirit that you receive through your enthusiasm. Okay, so if you can if you can tie that together and put the math together of that, so a lot of times in movies you'll have one character, maybe more than one, who's enthusiastic, right? And they're presenting a certain kind of idea that they're unbendable on. You know, sometimes it's the hero, sometimes it's the hero's mentor. Like if we look in the case of um, the Matrix, one, you got the fourth one is coming forth soon. Um, but it was the enthusiasm of Morpheus that allowed us to be able to have a string to tether along and pull us through the actual storyline, because it definitely wasn't anything that Neo was doing, because he didn't have that much dialogue, and he was kind of learning throughout until we got to the later iterations of the movies, and of course those weren't as good as the first one, because we had that one character. And in most great films, when you're breaking down, you want to look for the teacher character. There's always going to be some sort of teacher, there's always going to be some sort of guide, and that guide is going to come with a certain level of enthusiasm, right? So they're one with the Almighty. So a lot of times in the film, they're representing the Almighty because of their enthusiasm. And through that enthusiasm, they're able to implant inspiration in their student, right? So because Morpheus was enthusiastic, he was able to then share that with Neo, and Neo then became filled with the Spirit or inspired to now be the one, right? All movies of any metaphysical value have that same theme, even good cartoons, you know. And what you'll find out is ultimately that's a mirrored reflection of what we experience in life. In our own waking life, there's always going to be someone who maybe models a certain level of enthusiasm, right? We might not even meet them personally, and we're inspired by their oneness with God or their oneness with their purpose. And through that inspiration, we go on then now to initiate and fulfill our own personal hero's journey, right? But it all begins with that teacher. So one of the important things, like when I'm breaking down movies, I'm identifying from the very beginning. I'm identifying not only who's who, but I'm identifying the teacher, and I'm looking at um, what aspect of reality is the writer or the director seeking to question in this particular film, right? Um, and like I said, all good films have that. All good lives have a questioning of reality. If you go through the reality that is presented to you and you call that life, and you never examine it, and you live an unexamined life, then in many ways you've lived a wasteful life, right? So even when you're reading a book or you're watching a film, there should be that question that's present, and you want to look for the question. What do they question? And it could be a film like, again, Inception, or Dark World, or City of Ember, where um, everything is being questioned. It's there's a singular question, but sometimes government is questioned, like in the Wizard of Oz, where you have the idea of political rule and political omniscience that's being questioned in the form of the Wiz, right? Which you have in that particular thing, and I mean, all again, we like I said, all films have that aspect of it, Um, so you want to look at what is the question. Then I'll look at connections. Connections are always very important in films. We're seeing how this is connected to this, or that person is connected to that person, right? And let me tell you something too. Like when you're breaking down movies, um, one of the really important things is how you come into it. Like I've often shared, the energy that you approach your rituals with is the energy that you're going to magnify or exemplify throughout the ritual. What you bring in is what you produce more. So if you come in with a heavy dose of skepticism, you just produce more skepticism. No matter what you see, no matter what you experience, it's like you ever try to have a discussion with a person. They have a certain way of thinking, and they may say what they say, what they're thinking or whatever, and then you go to speak your piece, and as soon as you speak, you see a subtle movement of their head like this. Sometimes people do it and they don't even realize they're doing it. If you watch really subtle um, body cues, just little just signs in their body language, maybe the side of their mouth will already be like they don't really believe you. You'll be talking and they're like, right? Or their breathing will change, or they'll start shifting. Like they're trying to do whatever they can because they don't really want to hear what you have to say, right? So what happens is they come into that conversation, and if you cast your pearls to swine, and if you share what you're saying with them, their perspective or their skepticism now amplifies as a result of the conversation, regardless of the fact that you may even be correct in your reason and your rationale. But because they came in with that particular spirit, it amplifies it, right? So when you're breaking down films and you're breaking down books, it's no different. You want to come with an approach of beauty, real simple, right? And beauty again is perceived only by the soul. Beauty is not perceived by the senses. So you're already saying that whatever I'm going to read in this book, whatever I'm going to watch in this film, and it's just like how I move through life. However, I'm going to move through life, I'm going to do it in a way where I'm going to discover beauty today. I'm going to see some beauty today. I'm going to experience and bask in and travel through something that is beautiful today, right? So when you approach a movie, it doesn't matter the movie. Like it could be the most violent 187 murder, death, kill, bang, 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 Negro die slow film. It doesn't matter. If you walk into that film, or you turn it on and you say beauty, I'm looking for the beauty, you begin to now invoke the spirit of enthusiasm where you're becoming one with the most high, right? So what happens is you'll then see the subtle presentations that exist within the film. It's a real simple trick. It's a simple trick. Now, that's a trick, like I said, you could use in life. In life, it's pretty much the same thing. If you look for beauty, you're gonna find it. Typically, what you look for, if you look long enough and hard enough, even if it wasn't there, it will be there because life unfolds as we discover it. So if I'm only seeking for harmful discovery, then that's what will unfold for me because that's what I have the potential and the ability to relate and connect to. But if I'm seeking for beauty, as life unfolds, life recognizes, okay, his beauty receptors are firing off. So if the beauty receptors are firing off, I now have a surface that I can connect to because he shaped his receptors in the form of what beauty's inputs are. You see, so now I can mate and connect and match with beauty. So it's the same thing when you're watching a film. I wrote down a couple of ideas. Like I said, I got the word at 8:15. It's we started at 8:30. Yeah, so like 15 minutes for the segment. So I just wrote down a couple of quick ideas. Um, one of the things that I look for also, like in a film, are I mean, obviously you have your obvious like you know, Judaic Christian kind of themes that they pretty much put in a lot of different films, regardless of what the subject matter is. But one of the things that a lot of times I'm looking for is like themes. One of the key things you'll find often is forgiveness, right? Because forgiveness always has to do with the hero's journey. The most brave thing that anyone can ever do in life is to forgive. The most brave thing. So when you're having a film or something and it's about heroes and it's about heroic deeds, you're going to find always in that film there's an opportunity for that hero to forgive, right? Because what that does is that cements the strength and the power of their forgiveness within the film, right? So I'm always looking for, again, themes of forgiveness. I want to see, at what point, and sometimes it's the compatriots of that hero, right? Sometimes the way they'll start off in the film, they'll maybe present a certain thing, right? And then what happens is after they present that certain thing, the hero will find out that they weren't totally who they said they were, but at that point now they've developed certain level of trust, if you will, and that may be their heroic moment of forgiveness, right? So that's one thing that you'll always, if you're looking, if you're looking, that's one thing that you'll spot in a film is that there's always a aspect of forgiveness. Similar to like again the Wizard of Oz or the Wiz, a large theme that was prevalent in that particular movie, a large theme was gratitude, right? So a lot of times you'll have certain films where people will go through a certain journey, and what they're learning ultimately in that journey is how to be how do we say how to be grateful for what it is that they have, real plain and simple, right? So they'll go through this whole journey. Sometimes as they do this through a romantic component, and they'll see like, okay, the love of my life or whatever that I was looking for was right here in the person who was traveling along with me, right? So again, a lot of times when I'm breaking things down, I'm looking for that, like who's gonna forgive who, who's the forgiveness aspect, who's gonna forgive, what should this person be grateful for, what are they ignoring right now, what are they missing that they're questing for, right? And again, quest is the root of question. So again, when you look at the quest of your hero, 9 times out of 10, you'll know whatever the question of reality is. A lot of things are answered right in the quest, right? Because sometimes the question, it contains and it wraps itself around the very thing that the hero needs to forgive. Yeah, that the hero needs to forgive. So sometimes, or they need to be grateful for, right? So sometimes in the process of that quest, you'll see an opportunity where they'll like realize like, oh, I I was thought I needed to kill this person or to go avenge, like Red Dawn, where he's like, boys, avenge me. What? Avenge me. You have one of those type of situations, and then they'll realize like, you know what, it's not even about that, right? So sometimes there's a gratefulness for where we are right now. We're okay with that, and then sometimes it's the forgiveness aspect. Um, and it's just little ideas. Some of them, really. But I was just jotting real quick right before. Um, yeah, like the idea of meaning, which would be like, what's going on here, or what's like in certain kind of films, it'd be like, what's the meaning of my life, or what's the meaning of life? You know, I look for like certain keywords because again, when you're breaking down films, one of the things that you're going to figure out, you'll see quickly, is that there are certain words that are used all the time, right? Not just certain themes. Like we know the Osirian myth is like beaten to death in films, but films and religion, because like I said, films and books are the same thing, and sometimes those books become people's religions, but they were just books that were written based on the film of a mythology, right? Because ultimately, that's what your religious books are supposed to be, right? Something that somebody experienced or is a testament of what someone witnessed, and then based on what they witnessed, they will then go and write a book about it, and that book becomes the working mythology, which later then becomes the religion, right? So books and films are very, kind of intricately connected in that sense. Um, so when you talk about connections, one of the key themes I look for also in breakdowns is openness, right? Now, what do I mean by openness? In all films, good ones, there's that moment where a person has to be open enough to move outside of their comfort zones in order to have an experience that they would not have had otherwise, right? So it could be, oh man, what was that movie? Night Shift. It was an old movie, but it was with Michael Keaton, I think, and it's a guy who used to be on WHKPR or something. I can't remember his name, but anyway, y'all probably know what I'm talking about. But basically, it was a movie about a guy who was a chauffeur, and he ended up. Long story short, he ended up having some women work for him during the nighttime, right? And in order because he owed some money, like he was a regular square kind of guy, and he had money issues, and it was a whole long comedic kind of situation that happened. And next thing you know, now he's got a stable of employees, who's working for him. So, and this was Michael Keaton, so it's a movie from like the 80s. But again, pushing outside of the comfort zone, the openness, you look for the openness that now propels and fuels the theme of what's going to be happening going forward. Again, these are themes with life. Like no one makes a movie when they go with the social flow. In order to make a movie, you have to go with the natural grain. And the natural grain is usually called thinking outside of the box or going against the flow, right? But that's not really the case. When you do great things are a part of the natural flow. The natural flow of the universe is greatness, right? So it's when they say, "Oh, you're going against the grain." No, I'm going with the grain. I'm painting and sanding along the grain. I'm going along the natural wave and curve of things. But when I'm going with the societal way, life is pretty boring, right? So most of the time, there's not going to be too many movies about a person going along or trying to fit into society so much. If it starts that way, it doesn't end that way because there's nothing great about that. The greatness is being able to go, with the grain, go along the wood grain. Um, so another one that will, yeah, nah, we don't need that one. Like I said, I just wrote down a bunch of concepts that I kind of see. So okay, so like another one is play. I would say like yeah, play. All great movies have a measure of play. Like it could be Apocalypse Now. There's always a moment. Schindler's List. If you really look, there's always a moment of comedy. Even in the movie Roots, the series Roots, there's comedic moments. Um, and what that is that's reinvigorating the soul. Because remember, if you're in the moment and you're enthused, and you're tying on like again, you look at a movie like Roots, like we broke that down real quick, real simple, like who represented enthusiasm in Roots? It was Kunta Kinte, right? So enthusiasm, again, for those coming in late, enthusiasm or enthuse means to be one with God. Entheos is the Latin root of enthusiasm, right? So you had Kunta Kinte who was enthused. Now, how do we know he was enthused? Because everything he said was with the grain and the current of life. He's like, yo, people weren't made for chains. Like he couldn't understand the idea of being enslaved to another person or seeing other people misused and so forth and so on in a certain kind of way. So he always remained his enthusiasm about being an original person, right? And his enthusiasm around being an original man in particular. So even when it came time when they were like, yo, we could cut you here or we could cut your foot off. And he's like, cut my foot before you cut, what I consider to be um, one of the evidence and the demonstrations of me as a man, right? So it was through his enthusiasm that other people within the film were inspired. So his enthusiasm then translated itself into inspiration for Fiddler, inspiration for Chicken George and Kizzy and Tom and all of his different children that he had, his bloodline. They were inspired, meaning the spirit was put into them through his enthusiasm or oneness with the Most High, right? So even in a film like that, you'll have play and you'll have laughter at certain times. Why? Because laughing is a holy achievement. To be able to play or to be in bliss is actually a holy thing. That's why laughing laughing doesn't cool the body down, it heats the body up. It invigorates even in the midsection. When you're laughing, you think about what happens to your body. Laughing is not much different as far as the effect it has on your solar chakra than like even dragon breaths. Laughing builds up your chi, you know. So you'll have always that element of laughter or maybe even the jokester or the trickster, and they represent a certain holy element inside of your breakdown when you're dealing with movies. I'm gonna skip past some of that may not may be a little bit too maybe a little too deep for this session, this class session. Maybe do it another time. So another thing I look for is complexity, right? When I'm doing breakdowns, and what I mean by that is like takes you back to a Buddhist value, you know. And there is what was it? I'm paraphrasing, but in all things and in every places there is moments for reverence. And what that means is like you'll see that in certain films, right? So trying to think of one. So we could take a film. Well, we could use Roots again. Remember the scene when young Kunta, teenage Kunta, is he speaks to a grasshopper and he picks it up. This is when he's in chains and he whispers to it and he says, "Little brother, go across the waters and tell my father I'm okay." And he lets him out the window, right? Tell my mother and father I'm okay, and So there's that concept of complexity and reverence, and most great films that you're breaking down. And basically, what that is like the film will take you into an environment that you wouldn't normally be in. Something like a bug's life, or ants, or bees' life, or whatever, right? Where like Stevie Wonder had the secret life of trees or plants. The name of that album. But what it basically does is it takes you inside of an environment and it instills into you a reverence that you would not normally have had. Even something as silly as like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, right? So, or The Secret of Nymph is another great one. The Secret of Nymph was one where they were all mice, right? And they lived in a like someone's yard, basically. But there was all of this like mysticism and magic that happened inside of this mice environment, and even things as like a lawnmower, or the main protagonist inside of that particular cartoon lived inside of a cinder block. And the whole big issue with the movie was that the owners of the yard were getting ready to cut the grass and move the cinder block, and it was like everything was going to be in an uproar. And you'd have to watch it to really understand, but it would give you a different kind of reverence, right? So for some of you, like, you ever been in your yard or been in a space where you go to lift up a piece of wood and you look under it first, right? And you might be fascinated. Like you could have a cinder block, for instance, that's sitting in your yard throughout the season, and you lift it up and you see all of these different bugs and things that have made the bottom, and it's moist under there, the bottom of this cinder block, their home, and it's all these different organisms to the point that you might even put it back and just cut around it. You say, I'm messing up too many homes, right? So a good movie will do that same thing. It will transport you into an environment that you would not have normally have been in, and then it will give you reverence for the complexity of said environment. Okay, because I'm freestyling right now. So those of you late, you might not understand, but I the last 10, 15 minutes when this segment was about to begin, I said that I would cover it because our brother Lil couldn't make it. So I'm just, so I'm gonna go to the chat because I'm freestyling, break it up a little bit, so it's not just a lecture. Sometimes we have to really look. Precious Stepney says sometimes we have to really look for that comical moment in heavier movies. Would that be choosing to see duality in all things? No, mm-mm. That's not. That's not choosing to see duality because there's a whole world under those boulders. Yeah, it's not really looking to see duality because let's say if I'm only looking to see the holy, if I only choose to see the holy when I see a movie, I'm going to see the comedy, right? So then we might say, well, why don't you look to see the profane? Would that be saying that now I'm looking to see duality because I'm looking for the profane? No, it just exists as a part of the cipher. So it's not this side and that side, it's the whole of it. But if we don't enter into a space saying, I want to see beauty, we won't see it, right? You could go through the worst experiences, man. I remember one time I had to go to court for something, and really, I got roped into the situation, but it was really helping somebody else who didn't do what they were supposed to do, and then I ended up giving them some money to do. It was a whole long thing, right? But point I'm making, I don't like going to courts, right? It's a waste of my day. It's a theatrical environment. It's silly. It's stupid because they're not real courts. You're not a real judge. This is we're talking about statutes. We're not even talking about laws. There's so much tricky stuff in that environment. It's like this is like Shakespeare. You're pretending like you two are arguing, but you just had lunch together, and you're pretending like now you're arguing on my behalf. Like stop. It's just a whole theater, you know. So I'm there. I remember, and there was we had to go to one particular room to handle something, and I met a woman there, and she was so super helpful, right? Um, and this was the other person's situation, but I was like really advocating, like I was doing all the talking to the point that somebody in the court at one point, I said, "Do you understand everything that's happening?" Because they thought that maybe this individual might have had some developmental issues, and they didn't. They just was like, they're one of those type of people that if you're gonna handle it, I'll let you handle it, so that way I don't have to be accountable. I'll just let you. I'll push you out front there, even though it's not really your problem, right? So, the woman I met who was so friendly, she was gorgeous. She wasn't just gorgeous because the way she was shaped and things like that. She was gorgeous because of how helpful she was. She had a really sweet spirit. She was so helpful, and she wasn't flirtatious or anything like that. She was just doing her job, and I really enjoyed being around her in that moment. Now I didn't like ask her for a number. It wasn't anything like that. It wasn't about, sometimes you go out to the seashore, you see a beautiful shell. You don't have to take it home all the time. Sometimes you could just enjoy it, like, wow, this is beautiful, and then walk away. It was one of those things, like, wow, really beautiful woman, man. So that was the beauty that I got to experience in that moment, right? Because I came in looking for beauty, even though I'm in an environment that I didn't want to be in, doing something that I really shouldn't have had to have done if somebody would have did what they were supposed to do, so forth and so on, right? So I would say that, yeah, when you come in looking for beauty, now the comical piece, there was a lot, actually. Yeah, because when I went in, that particular judge, he was moving to a different courtroom, and it was his last day in that court. I think, matter of fact, we were the last case of the last day in that court. He didn't even have robe on. He had like regular like plaid button up shirt on. It was funny, and he said some things that you're not supposed to say on the bench. Like he revealed some truths about what was really happening, and that's why we ended up getting so much help because they were doing something. The other side was doing something illegal, and he was just like up there like telling the other side like you're lying, you're lying. And he's turning to me. He's like, "Look, this is what you need to do. Go to my office. Go to here. Talk to this person. Like, you know." So it was like almost funny because I'm looking like, "Yo, he don't give a crap. Like, this is his last. Like, he's letting all the secrets out. You know." So there's the comedy, right? But it all would have existed there regardless. But it's just my willingness to want to experience it and not just saying, "Oh, I gotta go get ready to do this, and it's gonna be this, it's gonna be that," right? So that's one thing. Laughter. Laughter is a holy thing. Laughter lights up the fire inside of you. And holy, coming from Helios, means fire, right? You know, so, right, almost quitting time. That's exactly what the energy was like. He was all loud. He was like, yeah, he's ordering his food all loud. He's like, yeah, where y'all going for lunch? Go pick me up there. You know, he was just, I was like, wow. So even when I'm sitting down on the benches, carving my name in the bench, because that's what I do, I looked up and I remember hitting the person was I was like, yo, this this is gonna go it's gonna either go real bad or real good. You know, I remember saying when he was shouting out, and it was two things that was funny. I shouldn't say this was funny because she was cool. She was she was cool. She was cool. One of the court officers, she had this bright blue hair. And the court, they're not even court officers, really. They keep it 100, which is just employees. Officers of the court or something different legally, but I'll just play along for now. But I'm like, yo, did she try to match her hair with her shirt? And at one point, I said something like, I was like, yeah, sis. I said, I see you got the coordination going on. Well, you know, she was like, and she was leaning against the like a table, and she just like looked back and was like, I'm like, yo, where am I? So there's the comedy. Right? There's a lot of comedy in that, you know. Um, but yeah, so it's all there holistically, just like in the movie. You know, we're talking about movie breakdowns, right? It's all there. Whether the movie's a comedy or it's a tragedy, it's doesn't matter, man. It's you know the comedy is always there. One of the big things, of course, um, transformation, right? So one of the things that you'll find in every movie is that it doesn't matter who you are or where you've come from, but it's possible for you to do something new, right? And sometimes, again, like I said, movies are life, life is movies, books are life, you know, life is a book, the book of life, the movies of life. So obviously that's a universal principle and idea that's prevalent, you know, just in waking life. Like we can always do something new. Like whenever we, like right now, in every moment, you can do something new. If you say, you know what, I'm gonna do 10 sit-ups before I go to bed. Do you normally do 10 sit-ups before you go to bed? No, I don't normally do 10. All right, well, let's try something new. You see, so movies will always have that theme that no matter where you come from, and that's part of the hero's journey, no matter who you socially identify yourself to be, you have the possibility to do something new. And doing something new is transformation. You know, a lot of times we learn that science from a movie. They wrap it up a little bit different because there'll be a quest or a question, and the question is answered at the end. But the reality is, the transformation of a movie never comes at the end; it comes in the beginning and in the middle. The moment that a person, there's usually some type of climax in the movie. You know, maybe they're traveling companions and they get in an argument, they split up, and then they finally, you know, do the Dumber and Dumber thing, you know, Dumb and Dumber or something like that. But you know, they'll split up to get back together, whatever. But that's usually at the middle point, and that's when the transformation happens, where they'll ask themselves, like, can I do this, or is this supposed to be that, or this or that, you know, or I feel scared, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. and then something says yes, you can do it, right? So transformation is a key point, and like I just describe what that is because that's a tough one for us in life sometimes to accept for other people. Sometimes when people don't do what we think they should be doing, we overlook their actual growth. And we don't realize that if they've done something new, that's new growth, so that should be celebrated. You know, like I was talking to a good brother of mine the other day, and we were talking about that with someone. It's another brother that we know, and he's got a history of being maybe somebody that most people will be pretty scared of. You know, a lot of the things that he's done in life, and but there's another side of him that we know where he's a warrior for the Most High. Like he's Allah's man. You know, so you know we were just talking about that. Like, and the brother said, I hope he sees Allah. Like I hope he, when he transitions, that despite all of the disobedience and all of the horrible things he may have done, that he still is able to do that. And I said, the truth is, yeah, that's a beautiful wish because we can never measure someone's transformation. We may say, like the example I gave him is like candies. I may eat a certain candy that it comes in red, green, yellow, blue, purple, whatever, right? Then I read one day that for the red dye, they use a certain bug, unclean bug. And maybe for the blue dye, they use pork. And I say, you know what? I'm going to keep eating the candy, but I'm not going to eat the red and the blue ones. And someone will come along and say, man, when you going to stop eating that candy? As opposed to celebrating that I'm not eating the red and the blue ones anymore. You see, it's because that within itself is a transformation. Even though I'm still eating the candy, I've actually transformed myself. I've done something new. So that's a common theme that I look for when I'm doing film breakdowns. It's like, who's transforming? What is the moment of transformation? So hold on a second. I have to make sure that anyway, I got to make sure that we're on certain things. Just give me 1 second. All right. So, like I was saying, so you're gonna have that aspect, right? You're always gonna have that aspect of a person kind of, going through this transformative process, um, and sometimes with that transformation, they'll couple transformation along with openness. And when you put transformation and you put openness together, mathematically, what you'll get is unity, right? So what that usually will translate into is, or translate as, is now the person is open to, which is a new way of thinking, the new, now, new, right? They are now or newly open to connecting with someone that they would not have connected with before. So that becomes their openness of transformation. So then what happens is that as a result, they become unified. And that unity, you see that in a lot of things, man. In a lot of different films, Lord of the Rings, where you have different people or different even species who are coming together, the humans and then the elves and the dwarves and the hobbits, and they come together in order to achieve a particular goal. But in order to do that, people who may have been historical enemies, now have to see each other in a new light. And through that new light, once they see that, they've now transformed. Doesn't mean a dwarf doesn't still act like a dwarf, right? But the dwarf now says, okay, I'm open to this thing now in order to achieve this, so we must have unity as a result. Okay, so that's a common theme that you'll find in films, is that coming together or that unity. And again, like I said, it's something that it's something that we have to have in life anyway, right? Um, mm, I don't really need it. Yeah, I was writing down words real quick before the segment started, just like words to touch on. Um, you know, okay. So another aspect, breakdowns, right? I don't really use this too much for the metaphysics, though. It can't. You can, like, if you look at certain films, Fantasia, Avatar, or what was the one with Robin Williams where he went into the underworld to rescue his wife's consciousness? I can't remember the name of that, but if you remember, put it in the chat. Um, so there's a sense of awe, right? So implanting a sense of awe through the cinematography is a deep and important thing inside of films as well, right? Because that's a part of what transports you into that particular world and facilitates the suspension of disbelief. Where in that moment you're like, nah, yeah, this okay. It could be raptors. Yeah, it could be raptors. There could be a purple river. Yeah, it could be a purple river. You start to have that thing, and that's that awe. Now, what that awe is what they're doing in that. See, that's more not so much a character thing. That's more where they're working on the audience because they have to get you into this space of that childlike wonderment, right? And it's via that childlike wonderment and that childlike awe that the film can keep you more present, right? When you still have that, you know. And unfortunately, a lot of the films that come out now because we're getting so hyper stimulated, it's only once in a while where films will come out or even cartoons or books will come out and we're like, what dreams may come. Good looking, brother Chris. Exactly. What dreams may come. Very good movie. It was almost like an Osirian myth, except the genders were reversed. You know, very similar to Inception too. Had a kind of underworld, sort of subliminal rescue, subliminal search and rescue mission in it as well. But yeah, that war, that wonder and the awe, and some films are really good with keeping you strung along with awe. Like there's a certain like acrobatic aspect to the awes, where it's like you never get a moment where you feel totally implanted in the world, like you understand it. It ups it, it ups it, it ups it. If you watch Westworld, it's kind of like that. You watch and all right, cool little story, whatever. Oh, they're AI, and it kind of keeps you like, what's next? You know, the Star Wars franchise was good at that. With that, at one point, with different kinds of Jedi, different kind of Sith, or different sorts of weapons and things like that. So that awe aspect is pretty key. Um, Another piece, yeah, I just put this. I know what I meant when I said this. Um, is you, right? So a lot of times you watch these things, you see a mirror of yourself. Whether you're reading a book, a holy book, or whether you're reading a movie, yeah, for the most part you're looking at a mirror. But what it's doing is that it's showing you how you can rise to the moment, right, or rise to the occasion. Um, you know, we may look at uh, kind of like our role, right? That's the you part, right? So right now, if I asked any of you, like what is your role in creation? You probably have to think about it for a minute. Some of you may say something really basic like, oh, to have children or something. But no matter what you would come up with, you would realize that your role is very minute and the scheme of creation is so super small, right? But just because your role in creation is so super small, that doesn't necessarily depict what your effort in creation should be, right? So that's a theme in movies a lot, right? So you might have a trying to think of one like that. Oh, it's like X-Men. Like you might have a Black Widow, or you might have a um his name is it Green Arrow? Yeah, Green Arrow. You might have a Green Arrow, or you might have a Black Widow who have no powers, kind of whack. Even like a Batman. Batman's a genius and he's got all that money. But what happens is that they show you them always giving their all. They fight harder than the Hawk fights. Maybe even harder than Thor would fight, right? But they seem to be the smallest parts of the whole creation of this universe. So that's a theme that you'll find in a lot of movies as well. Is the writers will direct it back to you. Maybe you're a small part of this whole movie or of this whole book. Like The Hobbit was an example. These little tiny people and this little tiny person, Bilbo Baggins, and was then able to uh, achieve such a large destiny, even though he was so small. Dark Crystal also had a theme like that. What's the other one with Legend with Tom Cruise, this young boy Jack, Peter Pan. I mean, we could go through, but you'll always see these characters that are. There was another one, Willow. Willow's another one, right? Willow. So you'll see a lot of times where there'll be little people, or they're very young people, and they're seemingly very small in the whole scheme of creation, but yet they give their all, and through them actually giving full effort, they end up, you know, uh, affecting the outcome of what creation would be. Even though a lot of times they're so small, and they'll even say, "Why me? Why would you pick me? Why would it be me? I am just this, right? All I want to do is farm. All I want to do is this, and you want me to go travel to where? It's that's when the writers are kind of sending you a message, like, regardless of how small you may feel, if you put your all into what your quest/question is, you will have a great and large outcome, right? So I would say those. I mean, I wrote down more things, but I think that's cool. I just wrote down a whole bunch of words. Basically, it's just a bunch of words. But you know, you could go through all of those ideas, right? Like I pretty much did. And those are some of the things that I look at, when I'm breaking movies down. Um, here's one. I'm gonna give you this one because we were talking about this last night in our new study group, because the solstice is upon us, and it's a time for darkness, right? The nights are longer, the days are shorter. So evil is beating the crap out of good, basically, according to the mythologies. But of course, as always, good will triumph in the spring, right? Or will begin to when things become equal, right, on that day, on the equinox. But good movies will show you your shadow side, right? So again, we could go back to like Lord of the Rings, and you had like Schmeagol, and there's different characters that will show you how violent you can be, or how lazy you can be, or how lustful you could be, or how hateful that you could be. That's an aspect of good movie making, good movie breakdowns. So even when I'm breaking down a movie, I'm looking for that too. Like, okay, there was a movie Black Swan that came out years ago. It had Natalie Portman in it. Good movie. She was a ballet dancer, and it's a good psychological film. But it was that aspect of like, how much are we truly embracing what we call our shadow side or our dark side? No different than like Lucifer and Satan being the dark side or the shadow of Lucifer, right? So when we look at them from a distance, we say, "Oh, Lucifer, Satan, same thing," right? But they know within their own cognition that there's a different. No, I'm the light one. I'm the dark one. Well, you're both the problem, right? So when you're watching a good film, you'll have that opportunity to kind of, you know, look at the projections, we'll say, um, of your shadow side, where there's collective. Like sometimes even when you're watching a movie about war is a product of shadows collectivizing, if you will. War is many shadows getting together and saying, hey, let's do some things. Crime is a collectivizing of shadow energy, you know. So that's one of the things that I look at. Where's the light? Where's the shadow when I'm breaking down things? And some people may just call that the protagonist and the antagonist, but sometimes it's not that. Especially if you're watching something that's considered like film noir. Film noir, a lot of times, the lead character will actually be the shadow figure. You know, they may be a detective or ex pro athlete or something, boxer or something like that, and there's this corrupt aspect to their character, even though they're being required to do something good or something that may even redeem the corruptness of their character, but they still maintain that tainted edge to them, right? So you may see your shadow side in that moment, you know. And the thing is, you have to learn to master both. You know, that's the key. You know, you're mastering Lucifer and Satan. You know, it's not Lucifer mastering Satan. You know, so you're mastering your ascending ego with your static ego. You know, your satanic ego or your satanic thoughts wants everything just the way it is, right? Anytime you go to do something great, tells you can't do it. Tells you you're gonna fail. It instills fear. It does whatever it could possibly do. It creates psychosomatic illnesses in the body. Oh, my chest. Oh, I'm breathing heavy. Oh, I know I shouldn't have did this because look at how I feel. Yeah, Batman would be like film noir, you know. But then there's your Luciferian aspect that says, I'm gonna do it. I don't care. I'm doing it, right? And you know, these two don't battle with each other too much because no matter what, they are both functioning and operating independently of their creator, right? So either way, so either if you're saying, I'm going to do this great thing and I'm going to do that and I'm going to be seen, I'm going to be light, or if you're saying, I'm going to keep things just the way it is because I'm this type of person, because I'm a Capricorn, because I'm a Virgo, because I'm a Pisces, you know, whatever it is. So I'm going to keep things the way it is. Either way, neither one of those thoughts are divine thoughts. You see, neither one of those thoughts are divine thoughts. So they're they're not inspired by the enthusiasm that you should have for being, you know, a projection of the Almighty, right? But so they both have to be understood for what they are, right? So sometimes you'll have that shadow essence and that shadow aspect, and you'll find usually in most good films your hero doesn't give in to either one. That's your little nuance, right? Your hero will seek to achieve something, but it's your hero's not doing it out of ego. And the beginning, and you'll see the hero go through the satanic and the Luciferian stage, right? In the beginning, the hero doesn't want anything to change. Everything is good. Why? Let's just leave it the way it is. And then something happens, and the hero now goes through a middle point where there's no ego, and it's just like, I just got to do what I have to do. And then usually, as the hero will begin to get good, there's that Luciferian ego that kicks in that requires the teacher now to make a connection and say, hold on, wait a minute. This is not what I taught you, right? You'll see that somewhat in reverse to a degree if you watch movies like The Karate Kid, right? Great movie, man, because it, you know, again, movies are used to push a social agenda, right? That's why, like, nowadays, movies are so silly because it's, even TV shows. You watch a show like The Walking Dead, like, every leader is a female. Every, like, what they do is they get men to make movies popular, to make them good, right? Let's look at the Star Wars franchise. Let's get all these men, Harrison Ford, Billy D. Williams, Mark Hamill, you know, and they're gonna, James L. Jones, they're gonna make this an amazing franchise. And then once we get everybody's attention on it and get it good, we're gonna kill all of them off, and then we're gonna put women in their place to replace all of them. It's movies are life, life is movie. You'll see the same things when societies decline and governments and empires fall. They do the same thing. The men build it, and then they put women in place, and then they fall, right? Because they're not meant to do that. Yeah, I know. All right, let me look at my likes. Let's see if the things go down. The numbers go down. But so you'll see that a lot of times in movies they do the same exact things. Um, there's a certain kind of idea and agenda. So, like I said, there's a social agenda, even whether with the shadow representation being put forth. There's a certain kind of mind that they're often looking to creating. And like I said, you see it again with the sexism nowadays, where anything you watch that has a hero and it's going to be a female, and it's going to be something completely unrealistic. The men just never do anything. That's a part of a particular sort of social agenda. But yeah, I mean those are the. I mean I wrote more words, but that's pretty good. That's pretty good. But you know, one of the things I'll say just about the shadow thing before I let you enjoy your evening some more. One of the values of seeing them projected onto a screen or into a book is that they're usually named, right? So if you watch again a Star Wars and you have a Darth Vader or a Darth Sidious, or Emperor Palpatine, you're able to see those characters, and you're able to see now, um, that's the name of that one, Sidious, Insidious. Ooh, you know, and you'll start to see, like, you'll put names to them, and it's only by naming your demons that you can actually conquer them. As long as your demons are still nameless, which is a trick. That's why a lot of times when a person has an issue and you say, "What's wrong with you?" what's the first thing they'll say? "I don't know," or "Nothing," right? When you try to get them to source, where did it come from? "I don't know," right? Because "I don't know" is a God. I don't know. Just like "they" is a God. You know what they're doing now. You know what they're doing. Who's they? I don't know. So if I can't name it, I can't subdue it, right? That's how demons work. That's why, you when you're oppressed on that level, you got to ask the demon its name. What is your name? Don't try to scare me. What is your name? You think about this even in waking life. Some people have lived a certain kind of life. The last thing they want you to know is their name. You go on to social media and YouTube, right? A lot of times you don't know people's names, you know, um, and they wouldn't tell you if you asked them. And that's because they're demons. That's how you know you're dealing with a demon. They're not going to tell you a name, you know. So that's just an aspect that you can use for even a level of healing, whether you're reading a book, or you're watching a movie and you're seeing certain people in a movie, like nowadays on social media, we have this term Karen, which I think is unfortunate in many ways because there's a lot of good people named Karen, I'm sure. But nonetheless, it is what it is. There's always got to be a sacrifice in order to move forward. But now when you see certain behavior, you say, "Oh, you ain't doing the Karen thing," right? And the ability for you to say that allows you to now deal with that demon. Before that demon even tries to rise up, you see it, Karen. And you already aware, even on a collective level, how do we deal with Karens? Pull the camera out, pull out your phone, start filming. Why? Because demons don't like light. So half the time, what do they want to do? Take the camera. "Stop filming me. Stop filming." They don't like that light. Yeah, you're a demon. Got it. Thank you. So it's important to understand, like, what side you're dealing with. Are you dealing with a shadow demon, or are you dealing with a fallen angel? Because fallen angels love the light. They love the light. They love the spotlight. No matter what's going on, put the camera on me. No matter who's in trouble, they on the side of the podium somewhere. Wait, see, that's where I was standing right there. See me? Yeah, when that happened. But the shadow demons don't like the light. You see, so you get a sense of how to work with different type of entities, and how to banish them. This is actually what I'm dealing with our new spiritual training part two, which I'm putting out soon enough. But it deals with working with other, like, how do you deal with these spirits, right? Are they all the same? Is everything a demon or everything an angel? Not in the same way, because there's polarities in everything, right? So as there can be angels and then fallen angels, there can be disincarnate demons, and then there could be rebellious demons that are trying to work their way out of the shadows into the light and redeem themselves. That's what Darth Vader was eventually, right? And Ben, I don't Ben Ryo, Ben Kylo Ben, Kylo Ren, that was his name, right? His real name was Ben, son, but he renamed himself Kylo Ren. Trying to work his way out of the shadows into the light, right? So anyway, that has been our things to kind of, I guess we'll call it things to look out for when you're doing a movie breakdown. Like I said, our brother Law, I found out about 15 minutes prior to that um, he wasn't going to be able to, I mean, he told us before that, but I didn't know. And I said, okay, I can, Sister Deidre, heroically, talk about the hero, she watched the movie that he was going to break down real quick, and she had her notes, and she was about to break it down and everything. And I said, yeah, but I said, Lo, he likes the history thing. And I was like, I think I could come up with something, you know. So what I came up with is the things that I look out for when breaking down a film. And willfully, it will help you not only when you're breaking down a film, but when you're breaking down the movie of your own life. If you can look at these different components, whether it be compassion, openness, transformation, looking for beauty, you know, um, reverence, learning how to revere complex environments, man. Go into the janitor's closet at your job or at your school. Try to figure out what's going on in there. Or look at all the keys on your janitor's, waste. Like, oh, what's going on there? Complex environments that you may think are simplistic and there's nothing to them, but you'll learn to reference them once you inject it. Imagine being able to go inside of a tree or go inside of an ant mound. You know how lost you would be? You'd probably be trampled. You probably couldn't last 30 seconds. Where they going? Where they going? So you learn to reverence those small, complex environments. And a lot of times, good films will teach you how to reverence something as simple like Tron, the inside of a computer microchip, or Inception, to reverence sleep, a dream, what's happening inside of there and the complexity of that and how that can affect the way we think and how whole corporations and billions of dollars are moved around just in what's happening in our resting state, So yeah, so just wanted to share that and thank you all for popping up, and showing up. And again, Brother Lowe will be back. He's just, going through a little strengthening right now, but he's good, and he'll be back with Dynamite Warriors, one of them, Dynamite. I think it's Dynamic Warriors. For the next breakdown. And if he's not, then well he will be. If he's not, we'll make sure you covered anyway. All right. So that has been our breakdown. I'm Chief Yuya of Our New Life Global Ministries. Always, if anyone's interested in being a part of the ministry movement, you go over to the website, ournewlifeglobal.org, and you can sign up over there, get a copy of the Our New Way. And as Brother Lowe always says, we got Shema tomorrow, so tune in for that. Yep. So yeah, of course there's Shema tomorrow, and more Anu good stuff, man. We got a lot of cool people in Anu. We got people like Lowe who break things down. People like Brother Antonio and Brother Zach, and they get up there and they start breaking down other stuff and talking about relationship things and asking the hard questions. Our Sister Deidre and Sister Moksha and Sister Precious, and they start breaking down other deep things. Everybody's breaking down all the deep stuff. And I knew we got a lot of deep thinkers who bounce off of each other and make each other smarter. I watched them. I sit back and I watch them, very insidiously. And I rub my hands together like this. And I watch how they ping pong off each other and they make each other smarter. So that's always a beautiful thing. So willfully, this was a moment like that for you, and something was said that will help you to have something to think about, so you can transform and do something new when the sun comes out. All right? So until such time, I'm Chief Yuya. Be well, be safe, man, and love